Well, if you've ever felt yourself struggling to hear from God, maybe you're trying too hard. The Bible tells us to be still. All we need to do is simply rest in His presence, and we can do that through soaking prayer.
Carol Arnott is an international speaker, author, co-leader of the Toronto Outpouring, and one of the founding pastors of Catch the Fire. She says that it's time to discover the supernatural power of spiritual rest by learning to soak in God's presence.
And what that looked like was we put on worship music and we positioned ourselves with no prayer agenda, with nothing but loving Him and letting Him love us.
In her book, Soaking in the Spirit, Carol shares how you can learn how to hear God's voice and access the healing power of the Holy Spirit.
Carol Arnott is here with us now, and we welcome you back to the program. It's always a treat to have you here.
Thank you, Jerry.
Love your new book, Soaking in the Spirit. You know, I think after the movie War Room came out, people were sort of alerted to the fact that you could have war prayer for the things happening in your life, but soaking in the presence of the Lord, soaking prayer is a different thing. How do you define it?
Soaking is just positioning yourself just for Him. Just, Lord, I come to you. I lay down my prayer agendas. I lay down my prayer needs, my family needs, and I just want to come and love you and let you love me. And it's just that resting in Him, because you see, we're going to be His bride. And we need to learn to know Him intimately.
He wants us to do that here.
He does.
Is there a right or a wrong way to do soaking prayer?
I don't think so. And again, different people have different personalities. And so some people find it more difficult to rest in His presence and for a long time. But we had a friend, and he just made a decision. I'm not feeling God. I don't understand this, but I am going to just position myself for 10 minutes every single night before I go to bed. And he would lie on the floor because he didn't want to fall asleep. And he would say, Jesus, here I am. What do you want to say to me? I just want to tell you I love you. I'm here for you. I want to get closer. And that consistent time just brought him into such great intimacy with God.
You mentioned this, and I mentioned it because I hear people say this. Sometimes in the beginning, when you start something like this, if you haven't done it before, you don't feel anything. It's not based on your feelings,
It isn't.
Right?
It isn't.
What do you say to people who are struggling with this?
Well, again, be consistent, number one.
Don't give up.
Don't give up. And in a meeting, sometimes people, when you're praying for them, you know, if they've been really abused sexually, physically, emotionally, they feel vulnerable and they feel a little nervous if they fall down on the floor or lie down on the floor. And so I just say to them, just sit in a chair, you know, and just tune yourself in. And don't pray in tongues. That's really good. But this is a receiving.
It's really hard for people to do that, Carol, isn't it?
It is. And I just put my hands on their face and I say, just come to peace. Because let me pray. And so I'll just pray for them, for the Holy Spirit to come, to draw them into a love affair. And then you can just feel the, come down. And I said, now what are you feeling? And they say, incredible peace. Yeah. And I said, well, that is Jesus. He's the Prince of Peace. And so welcome that.
We almost don't know what peace is in our world today unless we're making space for it like this, because the world is noisy and chaotic, and it's really a ploy of the enemy to keep us from getting into the presence of the Lord. Here you are, you're pastoring a church, you're writing books, you and your husband speak all the time. How have you mastered this for yourself? What's your plan in your life for soaking prayer?
Well, I do it wherever I can. I was telling the girls earlier, I said, you know, in busyness, you're at work, I said, just go into the bathroom for 5 minutes and just say, Here I am, Lord. I'm really busy today, but I just want to tell you I love you. What would you say to me? And it's just amazing how God will intersect your thoughts with his words. And as you begin to say, oh, that was God, you start to believe it. Yeah. And sometimes there's, the enemy will put distractions. If you're actually putting 15 minutes aside, half an hour aside, and I like to soak for an hour if I can, and or longer. I've been known to do longer, but anyway, because once you get started, you just cannot believe that the God of the universe, the Holy Spirit, wants to draw us into such a love affair with Jesus and the Father that it's mind-blowing. Like in Mary and Martha, Martha chose the busy kitchen, but Mary chose the best.
Yes.
And Jesus said, it will not be taken away from her.
I hear people often say that when they try to do what they call quiet time with the Lord, soaking prayer, that they either are distracted by not being able to focus their thoughts and stay focused, some even that they fall asleep. How do you encourage them?
Just encourage them to, at first, the enemy will come with all the things you need to do. Mm-hmm. So I just have a pad and paper and I write it all down.
And then let it go.
And then I go back. I won't forget it. I'm going back to soaking. Mm-hmm. And at first it might take 2 weeks, it might take 3 weeks before the enemy finally gets the message. And if it's God, you want to have it, just to jot it down, but just then tune back in. And I put music on that will cause my heart to love Jesus. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I'll just sing to him, and then I'll stop. And I'll just say, Jesus, do you have something to say to me? What's on your heart for me today? And then I just quiet myself, and then these intersecting thoughts will come across my own thoughts. And you just grab that. And he'll say, Carol, I really love you. Yeah. And you see, we don't believe that we're lovable, especially by the King of Kings. Mm-hmm. We think that we're just, we've done all this wrong. We haven't prayed up. We haven't read the Bible. We haven't this. We haven't that. And our parents have told us we're rotten, no good, and the world. You can't measure up.
God's ways are different than our ways.
Oh, they are. Yeah. And we had one guy that came, and he practiced this, and it was, I think, 6 months. And he came back, and he was really mad. And he said, Carol, I did everything you told me to do, and for 6 months, all God would say is, I love you, my son. And I said, okay.
That's a good thing.
Okay, let's ask God. Yeah. And he said, doesn't God have a bigger vocabulary? And he says, and so I said, well, let's just lie down and ask him. So I said, Holy Spirit, can we ask a question? Why are you just saying over and over again to this man? And I said to him, listen. And about 2 seconds later, he pops up and he says, oh, God just says, I'm going to keep saying that to you until you believe it in your heart.
Wow.
Mm. And you see, we need it to go from here to here.
That can be a long journey sometimes.
Because God is a God of love.
Yes.
It's all about love.
He's not just loving, he is love.
He is love.
You know, soaking in the Spirit is something every one of us needs to include in our relationship with the Lord. Be sure to get Carol's latest book because it's all about that, soaking in the Spirit. It's available nationwide. Thank you so much. Great stories in here and just encouragement to have that deep, special time with the Lord. Thank you. Great to see you again.